Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Tom Worth Jr. Some interesting developments in Ukraine over the past few days, starting with a massive drone attack deep inside of Russia. This is over in eastern Siberia, and it took me back to computer war games back when they were largely text only. That's how far back I'm going with these. Back, if you remember the movie War Games, but Russia had, or the Soviet Union used to have, and still do, I guess, their Air Force, their missiles, their Navy at stations all over the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union. But one of those locations in one of these video games, these text-only video games, was Murmansk, and eastern Siberia. Just desolate no man's land over there. But the Ukrainians somehow launched a massive, devastating drone strike in that part of Russia. And this is so far away from the Ukrainian front. And this was pretty shocking. It had been planned for a very long time. But apparently a truck opened up and all of these drones just came pouring out of a truck or trucks and started bombing these planes that were on the ground. Some of Russia's most advanced bombers. These are not, fighter jets and things like that, but they're bombers that launch bombing missions at Ukraine. So the thinking was that the truck driver or drivers they didn't even know the cargo that they had carried, that these drones had been stashed away inside of some cabins that were being transported inside of the trucks. And something deployed them and activated them, and then they could just, once the truck was opened up, just pour out of the truck and launch their bombing strikes. This was an early read on it that I got from the AP yesterday. I don't know, it's just kind of hard to wrap your mind around what's going on over there. The Russians didn't want to say much about it. These were eyewitness reports from people that saw this happen, citizens around that area. So the interesting thing about this was the timing. And we had over in Istanbul talks between Russia and Ukraine again. Today, and those talks were not expected to go anywhere in the first place, but certainly after that massive drone attack crippled a lot of the long-range bomber fleet of Russia. And sure enough, the report from Istanbul was the talks just kind of started and then ended. There was nothing substantive agreed to there. Meanwhile, Lindsey Graham and Dick Blumenthal, a Republican senator from South Carolina, Graham is, and then Blumenthal is a Democrat senator from Connecticut. So these two would be polar opposites. They're over in Paris saying that they need to have the strongest sanctions package against Russia that has ever been implemented against anyone. And they are ready to do it, both of them. And this is a total bipartisan effort. It has total support in the Senate. These sanctions do. They said 41 Democratic senators and 41 Republican senators support this bill. So it's 82 out of 100 senators support this overwhelmingly crippling sanctions package against countries that are funding Russia's war machine. These countries being China and India, imposing up to a 500% tariff on countries that are buying oil and other energy supplies from Russia. That's where Russia is getting its money for its war effort, largely from China and also India. So overwhelming world support in Europe, overwhelming senatorial support. Not sure what the House support is, but guess who doesn't support it? Donald Trump. Because, hey, this might make the ongoing peace talks more difficult, Mr. Trump says, which is just ridiculous. And this is even in the face of Trump admitting that Putin is not as serious as Trump would like him to be about peace, because everybody knows, including Trump himself, that there will be no peace by Vladimir Putin unless he is forced to do it. And the only way to force him to do it are by these even more crippling sanctions. So, meanwhile, on the European side, when we have talks of the 18th round of sanctions to be levied against Russia, it begs the question, what were the first 17 rounds? Why didn't you hit them with everything right out of the gates 3 years and 3 months ago? I don't know. But they keep ratcheting it up. This is getting more and more interesting as the Senate is finding its voice a little bit against Trump. Again, this is the Senate. There are so many more people on the Republican side that are on the take for Russia in the House than in the Senate. But if you're talking about 82 senators out of 100 supporting anything in the world, name it, you will not see that kind of bipartisan support that you are to have these levels of sanctions against Russia. And still, Trump won't support it. So that tells us what we need to know about Trump. Meanwhile, I do like that Ukraine is just upping their game at every turn. This drone strike was planned for months and months and months in advance. I guess they were just waiting for the right time to launch it, or waiting for these cabins to be delivered, and then the drone strike to be fully automated from deep within Russia. It's kind of scary if you think of what warfare is turning into now, and we aren't a part of this. This is something that is having to be developed on the fly by a tremendous underdog in Ukraine. So if you think about an adversary like China, for instance, that has vastly more resources than a Ukraine does, if things ever go south with China, this is why we try to do things like ban TikTok and restrict DJI drones in the U.S., banning chips for AI over in China, our most advanced chips. They are making do without these things, China is. So I do like that we are playing hardball with China. That is one thing I have always liked about the Trump strategy. The problem with this and with Trump's strategy there is it's just the same playbook that he deploys everywhere else, which is that there's never any follow through. There's never any consistency. There's never anything. So I do continue to be baffled by the stock market no longer imploding, and by the Dow continuing to creep up a bit, by inflation not spiraling out of control yet. This is perplexing. I'm not really sure why. I need to continue to look at why, because I am often accused of being just as biased as I always call the other side out for. I don't think that's the case, because I realize that not everything is happening the way that I think it will, and I do look into causes as to why. Don't know that the other side is doing that, but I certainly am. I haven't been able to develop any yet. I haven't been able to come up with anything yet, and I am looking at both sides of this. It's just a head scratcher. So to me, it is just an indicator of how strong this U.S. economy was, how much it was cranking along under Biden. We were firing on all cylinders, and even in the face of everything Trump is throwing at it, all of the chaos, all of the upending of the world economic order, in the face of all of that, this economy is still hanging on. The stock market is still hanging on, and if only it could have been allowed to continue at what it was working towards for the last year and a half. But it is not allowed to do that. So I think that might need to be the new comparison, is not compared to what it was doing in January or February, but what it could have been doing were it not for Trump's involvement in manipulation. So hopefully analysis will be done on that. I have not done any analysis on that other than trying to figure out causes. That's the best I can come up with for now. But anyway, that's it for today. Hope all is well with you all, and we'll talk later.